Hi, CBC. So how are you? I'm good, thanks. I'm not sure if the others got the correct Zoom link. I don't think so, because I see that a lot of them joined my other Zoom class. Let me just check here. Oh no, it's just you, actually. Okay, it's just you for now. Okay, that's okay. Did you have a good weekend? Excellent. Did you manage to go through the brief for your first assessment, by the way? So if you didn't, it's okay. We're going to talk about it today. It's nice to be at home, yeah? I'm sure there's pajamas, coffee. You don't have to go to classes. Do you like online lectures or no? Yeah, it's a good life. It's actually a very good life. So I'm just going to paste the link in the chat if we have to go into the third meeting, okay? So I put the link for the third meeting because the first two are on core campus. And if we run overtime, then there's the third meeting. I hope the others join us, because if we have one student, it's not so good. Feels like a private lesson. Okay, there are some other students joining us. So I just want Nazreen to connect. Let me just send her a message. Oh, she has. Hi, Nazreen. Hi, Kolo. So, guys, it's nice to see you. We're having our wonderful online lectures. I know most of you are in your pajamas. I won't tell you if I'm in my pajamas. But we might go over time for our lectures today. So I know that you have two links on Call Campus, and I want to paste the third link. Please copy and paste this link. And if anyone needs it, please give it to them, because they might need to go into the third lecture, okay? Because I'm not going to keep pasting and pasting and pasting all the time. Please send the link if we go into the third lecture. Okay, so I think we can get started for today. Alrighty, so today we're going more into the topic of globalization and the focus on the media. So first, let's do a quick recap of what we did in our last class. What did we talk about last week? By the way, if you'd like to answer, you can just write me in the chat so we have consensus. Everyone's writing in the chat so that I can just choose people to answer instead of having the hands in the participant list as well as in the chat. So guys, anyone, what did we speak about last week? You can even write some comments in the chat. And guys, I just want to remind you, I'm not going to talk to myself in this class. Okay? Anybody have an idea of what we spoke about last week?
Hello, ma'am.
So hi, Ampo, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. We spoke about globalization yesterday. Last week, sorry.
It's early, it's okay. So Kolo, great, fantastic. If you'd like to answer, just write me in the chat so before you open your mic instead of just speaking, okay? So that I know you want to speak and then I can give you permission to speak. So we don't just have everyone speaking at the same time, if that happens, okay? Good, excellent, Kolo, fantastic. I mean, sorry, who answered? Who answered just now? It wasn't Kolo? Okay. So yes, of course. So we spoke about outsourcing, the advantages and disadvantages of globalization. We spoke about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, okay? And how our higher order needs come from the media. We spoke like about things about our favorite book, our favorite movie, the things that we watch, we engage in. And then we got to language loss. Who wants to briefly tell me what we spoke about in terms of language loss and globalization? And I think I gave you guys the example of myself as well. Yes, and Paul.
You said with globalization, most of the time we use English, so that's why most people they lose their languages. Like you said yourself, you don't know your Indian language, you only know how to speak English. Same as us, some African children, we don't know how to speak our African language, we only speak English. And as well on our social media, we use in English in all these apps as well.
Exactly, fantastic. So we spoke about how the language of the internet is English. And so we are obliged to use this language when we are engaging in any kind of media online. And I think we even touched on the fact that the internet isn't catered for native languages. Okay, so it's very interesting. We spoke about, even though China and then Mandarin is the most spoken language in the world, and then Spanish, and then we get English. Everybody is using English, and we touched on this and said that it's because the 5 or 6 most valued companies in the world are technology companies, and they are American. Okay, any questions about that before we go into today's lecture? Comments? So if you have no comments or no questions, you can just write no in the chat. So cool. So I did do this last week. It was meant to be part of today's lecture, but we'll do it anyway again. So we're going to speak more about the media, okay, and this language usage in media. So the use of language is common to most media because we know that, especially in South Africa, it's complex because it's always changing. So when we study this, we need to study encoded language and the psychology of the audience as well. And then we use different words, that's diction, and how the message is interpreted to different audiences. So we need to remember that we are influenced by the way the media represents a story to us, okay? Right now, we know there's things going on in Russia and the Ukraine, okay? And we're reading various different reports, but we are only influenced by the story they are telling us. We don't know what's going on there, okay? Even in TV, the the facts can be twisted and visuals manipulated, and this creates a particular type of viewpoint. So we did speak about this, as I said last week. So this is what we call framing, and framing considers everything from a reporter's choice of words, the music that is played during, before, or after a news item. Okay, and it can sensationalize certain issues and present some items more often than others. So yes, we need to focus on this because we know when we see things over and over again, it gets embedded into our minds, okay? Just think about certain things, some jingles that you know, okay? And it can, just the way it happens with jingles or some brand representations, it can happen the same way with news items. So we need to remember that. So the media has the capacity to marginalize particular voices because they act as mediating structure in the daily lives of people around the world. Yes, so some voices can be highlighted and others can be marginalized. So we need to remember that the media companies are owned by groups of people and they have their own motives and agendas. So they can also hire people who also have the same motives and agendas and believe in the same way of thinking. Okay, and therefore all the media can come across with these kind of ideologies. So in South Africa, we have the media houses, Media 24, Independent Media, Caxton, and Times Group. Okay, and then here we have the ideology that this can be controlled by white minority capital, and it can influence the people in this way, especially in the South African context, where we know the majority of people are African. Whoops, sorry, excuse me. So it's important, rather than accepting the media at face value, we question what we are consuming and ask ourselves whether there is any influence or bias that may be present. Language in the media presents a complex issue, while the media has an ethical interest in representing the truth and playing a part in South Africa's post-apartheid transformation. The interests of different groups can often be in opposition. Questions, comments? So this is actually quite self-explanatory. So when it comes to language loss, as I said, we did speak about this. So there's a shift. So as we know, technology can also be used to save languages, okay? So we can use it to preserve languages that are going to die out, etc. And we can communicate these messages via mass media channels. Okay, so that's when it comes to the media and language loss and acquisition. And it's a little bit political as well. So now we're going to touch on the question of identity and the loss of identity when it comes to globalization. So before we go on, I put a question on Call Campus. It's a discussion question, and it asks, how do you think globalization and the media could increase the ability of us to lose our identity? Does anyone know or have an idea? Yes, Nazreen?
So it could be that when it comes to media and everybody being on media, you more so have a connection with that, and everybody is the same in accordance to that. So it's like a trend. You only follow that trend.
Okay, good, exactly. So yes, so we're going to speak more about trends, media. We all know we're on social media. So what does this have to do with us? How is it making us lose our identities? Okay. Is there anyone else with an opinion? All right, so here we go. As a result of the dominance of Western civilization and the spread of the ideologies, it's argued that identity is becoming lost fundamentally through European and American cultures. Okay, so we know the world is becoming increasingly interconnected. We spoke about this kind of globalization, the internationalization of labor. Okay, so labor movements we did speak about as well, and trade and communication through various telecommunication platforms that we have. Okay, and this has an effect on how people perceive and present themselves to others. So we all know that we are online. We have an online identity. Okay. So now we could say that this could lead to us having a greater focus on our roots and cultures. And we becoming increasingly more aware of our cultures, but others say that our identity is becoming lost because of this kind of globalized culture. Does anyone have an opinion on that? Yes, Nazreen?
So I fall under the category of believing that it does take away from your actual culture, because you're so dependent on what media has to say and you follow every trend, and you mainly follow celebrities, and that's media. And you follow them so much that you forget to follow who you are, and you follow them to become like them.
Yes, I agree as well. Does anyone disagree with Nasreen's point? So we can also say that both of these processes are occurring simultaneously. We know that there are people in the media who do advocate for their culture, for their identity, okay, for their language, etc. But we know most of the times that because these companies are owned by the West or people in the West, that they tend to propagate their culture and we follow them, unfortunately. So identity has always been a difficult issue, and this is very true. So what is identity? So it's the various characteristics that constitute what a person or thing is. Okay, it can be the sum total of culture, subcultures, language, appearance, beliefs, social relations, context, histories, cognitive processes, and actions that people possess or engage in. So magazines, television shows, movies, and videos are all cultural aspects that have an influence on our self-image. Who can tell me how? Or what has your experience been with magazines, television shows, movies, and videos? And how do they affect our self-image? Come on, guys, it can't just be Nazreen talking in this class. There's 16 of us here. You guys must have something to say. Yes, Sesam.
Hi, ma'am. How are you?
Fine, and you?
I am good, thank you. I think because of the standard of beauty that the magazines and social media show us, we tend to think that we are also supposed to be looking perfect, slim, and that takes away the self-confidence from us, and we start doubting ourselves in general.
I also think I touched a little bit about the skin lightening things as well last week. I'm not sure if I did it in this class. Yeah, exactly. Yes, Kola?
Ma'am, my opinion is that like what they show on television and magazines and all that stuff is just a facade, like how beauty should be, and then it makes us very envious and want to be like those people, and we think that's the perfect life. But like I feel like the media is one-sided. They only show the perfect, they don't show the behind the scenes. So to a viewer it may seem like it's a parallel universe okanye mhlambi,
Okay, good.
you know.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Great, guys. Those were excellent points. So yes, it does have an influence on us and our self-image, okay? We know that it tells us what's beautiful, what is considered moral, okay, a lot of the times, how we should think, what is appropriate behavior, wealth. So all these kind of things, it does influence us. And we cannot deny that it influences us. So let's look at this a little bit more on a global perspective. There are 7 billion people on the earth, and there are thousands of cultures in the world. So we need to understand that cultures and languages are interlinked, and it's necessary for us to spend some time to deconstruct this concept of identity lost, to ask the showing question, is globalization exacerbating the severity of humanity's collective identity crisis? So before we continue, what are your thoughts about this? I think Sesam had a hand raised. Yes, Sesam.
Oh, sorry, ma'am, that was for the previous question. I'll just put it down.
Okay, guys, so let's just use one mode of telling me that you would like to answer. Let's just use the chat, and you can just write me, because I can't have both the participants list and the chat on my screen. It takes up too much space. So just write me in the chat, okay, Sesa, if you'd like to answer. So what do you guys think? Do you think globalization is increasing this process of, it says, humanity's collective identity crisis? Anyone's thoughts or opinions on that? Yes, Maki.
Ma'am, I believe it is, in terms of what I view as, like, let's say I grew up being, let's say, Zulu, and then I come across a different culture and globalization. You're gonna, at a young age too, you're gonna have that type of thing where you start to question your own culture. And I think a lot of people, because like the Western culture is more free, also, you start to, I don't know, back off from your original. Something like that.
Good, excellent, Maki. Yeah. So yes, we see we are like surrounded by Western messages, Western media, Western clothing, Western everything, Western movies. I think I asked you guys last week, what's your favorite book or movie? And a lot of you said that it was something from America or something from Britain. So in this way, we see how we are influenced by them, and it does affect our identity, okay? So it says here, an identity crisis occurs when an internal conflict arises and a person questions their role, significance, and uniqueness, or identity within the greater contexts of social spaces they inhabit. Okay, any other questions or comments before I go on? So we see this happening how? There's a kind of collective identity crisis by the growing focus on the importance of gender. We know people can identify as different genders these days, races even, okay, and cultural identities as well. There's also this growing nationalist sentiment on a global scale where we just want to be who we are, okay? And we see that it can have a negative effect on the world. So the US presidential elections, we see identities here, different identities, the Democrats and the Republicans, okay, it's split right down the middle, okay? So there's a kind of identity crisis here. Okay, so in Europe, they have national sentiment and populism. And we can also talk more about the refugees and people that have been forcibly displaced, okay? So we can see that the world is divided on issues of identity and culture, and the need to help others and respect their rights is being increasingly overshadowed by the desire to retain one central identity, okay? And this is rooted in our history and our national identity. So we all kind of are South African, and that is also our national identity. And it does affect certain other people in the world, especially with refugees. We know that a lot of countries, especially in Europe, if you didn't know, they don't like accepting refugees. They have a huge problem with it, okay? Because they feel that it's endangering their identity and their culture, okay? Who thinks that's true? Who has a point or anything they would like to say about that? Yes, Nazreen?
So when it comes to different people coming into your country as refugees, I don't specifically think that they take away from your identity. I just feel like they add more to your identity because it's different cultures, different people. There's different varieties of the world that's going to now enter, which means you see more. I mean, if you choose to let your identity go, isn't that your choice?
Well, you know, we can argue that sometimes it can be your choice, or sometimes it's not your choice, as we find in the case of globalization. But yes, I do agree with you that it adds value to a country. Okay, and yeah, so but this is the way they feel in Europe. Yes, Maki?
I wanted to ask, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
So how are refugees influencing their culture if they hold no power over them? Because it's not like you're gonna say, man.
No, go ahead.
Because I'd like to believe that someone can influence you if they have like power or money, right? Like that's how the Western culture is able to influence African nations and stuff. So if someone is coming as a refugee, right, how do they have the power to influence or manipulate the way of thinking?
So guys, it is possible. I just want to let you guys know that it is possible. So we need to understand that there can be integration and, you know, intermarriages, okay? And this kind of thing where people can influence other people. In France, they have a big problem because of the Muslim, I'm just being very honest, the Muslim communication, the Muslim population that comes from North Africa, okay? And they don't like this intermingling sometimes because they feel as though, like, you know, a lot of people are converting and, you know, they're losing their culture, etc. So, you know, I'm just saying it is possible. Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing is debatable, but it is happening in Europe, not only with the Muslim population, like I've identified, but with other populations as well, especially from North Africa that go into Spain, that go into Italy. You know, I don't know if you guys ever read that story about in Italy, they let that African man drown. They were just watching him. Okay, so they do feel this way. They feel that maybe it's not beneficial to them in any way. So it does happen, okay, in this way. Any other thoughts or comments? Yes, Nazreen?
So you're saying that they fear that their culture is being taken away because Muslim people are going to France, but culture and religion are two different things.
No, so you guys, we need to understand that religion is it's like a form of our culture. Yes, it is different, but it's intertwined in so many different ways. Okay, so we need to understand that we need to understand that the language from North Africa is different from the language in Africa, in Europe, and it affects our culture and our identity. So even when I know I was speaking more about that, Nazreen, and I'm sure that you are probably Muslim, but when we would talk about other areas, and not this particular case, you'll see how it is intermixed and it does affect. So I was just speaking more about that one particular instance in which I know about, because I speak a lot to people based in France. So I would just like to let you guys know about how they think about it. But it is possible where you get influence from outside cultures and it can have an effect on the national identity. So it is possible. I don't know on what scale it's possible, but I'm just letting you guys know that it can happen, even if the culture is weaker, as we assume. Yes, Sesam?
Hi, ma'am. Is it not more of a economical problem rather than a cultural integration? Because at the end of the day, France is going to be the one who needs to take care of these people somehow.
It could be, yes. It could be. It could be, definitely. So there's many things that we need to think about when we talk about this kind of issue. And I was just giving an example of France, but we need to understand that it happens all over Europe. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just giving an example, okay? So Nazreen, please don't take any offense. I was just giving a particular example.
No offense taken. It was just a very blunt way of stating it. Sorry.
So let's continue. Okay, so as we know, in South Africa, it's the Rainbow Nation, and we have a lot of diversity in terms of cultures, languages, and people. However, conflict around identity has caused a great deal of adversity and suffering for many South Africans. Okay, so here we're going to speak more about it. We know that in South Africa, we have the effects of apartheid, racism, inequality, and poverty. And these are still pervasive. We're lucky in South Africa that we have many different cultures and languages and religions, and we all live in a very good way. Okay, it's harmonious. So yes, all these things still keep us divided though, and disenfranchised, the things of apartheid, racism, inequality, and poverty. So while there are many aspects to the cultures of South Africa that are noble and worthy of consideration, they are also marked by internal and external conflicts and shortcomings. Okay, so we can also speak a little bit about this, guys. So this topics might be a little bit sensitive for you guys, okay? But we are dissecting more about how things are affecting us as people and our identities, okay? So when it comes to this, it can be a little bit fragile. So here we see two pictures that I've put up, tradition and modernity. What are your views on these images? So Amukelani says past and present. Kolo, yes?
The evolution of a Black man.
So Kolo says it's the evolution, okay, of an African man or a Black man. Anybody else? What has sparked this evolution? Why did this African man evolve?
I feel like it's more of the sense of adaptability with what is happening on the modern days in the society, the workplace, and all of that stuff. I mean, like you can't walk into an office with a traditional attire and all of that. So they need to have a sense of acceptance and adaptability into the modern.
Okay, good. So I see some good colonization and Western influence. Tando says technology. Yes, good. So yes, so we see this evolution has happened, but what has influenced this evolution, and some good answers in the chat. So let's go more into it. So in South Africa, we find that there is this conflict between tradition and modernity. Okay, we're going through this messy transition from African traditionalism to both modern and postmodern constructs. So our identities and practices of the past are at loggerheads with current identities. And as such, a kind of split has occurred with indigenous cultures. Has anybody experienced this personally? So Neuberger states that there is relatively a steady but somewhat turbulent migration from traditionalism to modernity. And in many respects, traditionalism is a mirror to modernity. And while traditional cultures expose collectivism, the concept of Ubuntu in Zulu culture, modern Western culture promotes individualism and a focus on the self. So do you guys feel as though that is happening in African culture, where you see a lot more people are becoming individualistic more than collectivistic? So yeah, if you want to speak as well to say something about it, you're more than welcome. Okay, so good. Does somebody disagree with it? Yes, Sam?
I think the culture of Ubuntu is being lost, mostly in large cities. But if you go back home, like in your Eastern Cape, like your small towns, there's very much still a sense of Ubuntu.
Okay, good. And do you think with the rapid use of technology, it's going to remain that way, Cesam?
Definitely. I think the culture back home is so raw, even the talent, because of the lack of technology that they have. They don't have a lot of outside influence. Everything they basically learn and do is from the community.
Okay, good. So there are strong differences between traditional culture and modern culture, where modernity has been able to overwhelm other cultures. Okay, so yes, we can see it in Africa, we can see it in many instances. We even have this hybridization of cultures, which we're going to talk about, where we have this Indo-West, kind of culture, everything mixed with the West. I'm going to speak about it. So the media itself is a modern construct, and as such sells modern ideals to people through striking advertisements, sensational stories, and promises of safety, love, wealth, and satisfaction. So we need to understand that the media is a modern construct. It's from the West, okay? So South Africa is, if we have to look at South Africa, it's homogeneous, okay, in the fact if we look at it on a race perspective, but if we look at culture and language, then the population is heterogeneous, okay? Which means that we have various different cultures, languages, etc. So it's unique because we need to look at our national identity, and if we consider it on the grounds of the way people look, we can't actually do that because we have so many different cultures and languages in South Africa. So when we're dissecting it, before previously they all categorized all African people as one, all Indian people as one, etc. But we can't actually do that. So how does it link to the media? So the media plays a strong role in shaping our opinions and identities, particularly when it comes to body image in the media, okay? So additionally, most research has been focused on the media's effects on women. Okay, we know that we can't generalize, but it also affects men and the insecurity about their bodies. And if you even look in the textbook, they speak a lot about, and I told you guys that this is going to be a little bit controversial as well, but they speak a lot about African women and African women's bodies, okay, and the role that the media plays in this as well, which we might touch on a little bit later. What are some of the negative effects that you could think about when it comes to the media and how it affects your body image? We spoke a little bit about it previously, but what about when it comes to like the things you wear, etc., or your identity even? Think about who you are on the internet. and who you are in real life. Yes, Mark, I think Maki, it's Maki first and then Nazreen. Yes, Maki?
Ma'am, I feel like a lot more people these days are now open to the idea of bleaching their skin.
Yeah.
And it's, and also, right, so many people are now bleaching their skins that prices have even gone down. So just shows how many more people feel influenced by, I don't know, the internet, I guess. But yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so you know, this process of bleaching our skin comes from a long way down the line of colonialism, okay, and its effects on people and how white was considered best, etc. So it could be propagated to through the internet, yes, and through people's mindsets as well. Yes, Nazreen?
So it can also be like the way you dress, the way you talk, the way you present yourself in a way. Western culture has influenced that so much because with celebrities and everything, it's always branded names. And everybody now believes that you have to have the latest Gucci, the latest this, anything that's branded to be that, to be this person that is better, bigger.
Exactly. That's a very good point as well. So it does affect us, guys. Just think about it. You know, how many of South African rappers do you see that they have this American twang when they're rapping, you know, and then they bring this American identity, okay, to South Africa. So just think about it. I know that there are many South African rappers that do this actually. Okay, there are way too many comparisons between people and what they see on Instagram filtered pictures. Yes, exactly. Okay, so the internet does have an effect on our capacity to be influenced, definitely. Okay, so there's many instances where we see this. Also, you know, if you guys didn't know, there's this thing called selfie-itis, where you're just taking selfies all the time, okay? And I know a lot of us do it, okay, because we want to put our pictures on and we want to edit them, etc. But you know, we didn't have this kind of behavior before, but now we are doing it. Okay, why do we do it? Exactly, Impo. And that's definitely coming from westernized culture. So Impo says many people, especially ladies, they now want bigger bums and slimmer waists. So I was getting so into the lecture that I even forgot that this meeting is going to expire. Guys, we are definitely going to go into the third link. I just want to give it to you because this is a very interesting lecture actually. So let me just paste it in the chat. So here it is for the third link, okay? Just so that you guys have it. So yes, we were saying that the internet does influence us in many different ways, okay? And now guys, we even see all these like TikTok challenges and there's so many problems with it as well. So it can create so many problems on so many different levels. Okay, so we also know that we have like scammers, okay, bullies on the internet, trolls, criminals, etc. And we can also change our identity on the internet as well. So we create so many different accounts. We can be so many different people doing so many different things on the internet. So our life has been fundamentally changed through the processes of the internet and the modern media. Comments, questions? No, should we move on? So identity is lost like a needle in a haystack. When we consider identity crisis of humanity relating to the focus on issues of gender, a correlation can be drawn between the capacity of individuals to invent identities and similarly to conceive of genders that fall in some undefined position between what is male and female. Okay, so guys, we've seen this before on the internet. Well, I hope that you have seen it, where people are identifying as different genders. Okay, now I'm not gonna, these issues are very like controversial to get into because I know that many of us or some of us could identify as different kind of genders, but it could be said that the internet has fueled this kind of way of thinking, and more so through globalization. Okay, and in this way, people are losing their identities. Does anyone have a viewpoint on that? Yes, Tando.
Ma'am, isn't it more of shedding light on identity instead of like fueling it? Because yes, without social media or the internet, maybe people wouldn't have known about the various, options that we have. But it's more of, man, I feel a certain way, but I don't know what to call this. Then the internet's like, oh no, maybe you're non-binary or stuff like that. Then actually it makes sense for you.
Yes. Sorry, Tando, did you finish speak?
Yes, I'm done, ma'am.
Yes, okay, good. So yes, Tando brings an interesting point across where she feels as though the internet is just shedding light, okay, on these kinds of things. We all have different opinions about it. Let's listen to Maki. Yes, Maki.
Ma'am, but okay, so also just a 2-point question to you and Tando. I was gonna say, ma'am, don't you feel like, okay, let's say pre-2013, right? Let's say it's 2012. Like I don't know if you know, like a couple of years ago, there was like that black girl who went on Dr. Phil and said she identifies as white, right?
Yes, we're gonna talk about that as well.
So my point is, let's say the time is 2012, right? Before or like the huge like Instagram takeover and stuff like that. I believe that it really is globalization and Western ideas, because I don't think she would have felt that way. Well, that's my opinion back then, because she wouldn't be easily influenced. I feel like that came from influence. I'm not saying she's wrong to be like trying to identify as a white person, but I don't think she'd have those views had the internet or Western ideas played a part on her.
Okay, cool. So yes, we need to remember that here we have different views and different ways of thinking. Tando, would you like to say something?
I'd like to respond a bit to Maggie. What I'm saying, I hear what you're saying about being influenced and all that, but like it could be something you're feeling, but you just don't know how to put it. Like, man, I'm not trying to share anything, maybe just like, oh my gosh, I don't feel black, but you don't know how to put it. But since now there's internet and people are showing that you can voice yourself and you can like describe yourself the way you feel like you want to describe yourself, then you're like, oh, actually, there's white. So I actually feel like I'm white. And then like, no, actually, I resonate more with Indians. I feel like I'm Indian. Those kind of things. It's just that, like, I don't think she may have been, yes, but also it may have been like something she felt like, nah, man, these people don't make sense to me. I don't match with them. In a sense, that's what I think.
Good. So yes, we get various different points of views when it comes to these kinds of topics, and both very good points that you brought across there. Okay, so yes. So let's go to the globalization of Western ideas. So we spoke about the cultural media imperialism model. Okay, how the world has been transformed by Western culture and values. While the effects are not always negative, we cannot deny the effect that it did have on Africa and African cultures in terms of the languages we speak and the food we consume to an extent as well. And we're still struggling to find some kind of stability. So this is quite interesting. The printing press marked the birth of the mass media, okay? And since the printing press was a European invention, one can claim that the media's history is rooted in Western culture. Okay, so not all media is Western, but since mass communication is a Western construct, I'm not sure if I have some words down at the bottom. Let me just see, and there's an N missing there, sorry about that. So since mass communication is a Western construct, I think some words got cut off there, guys. Sorry about that. Sorry, let me just get back here. So basically, okay, so here what we're saying is that not all media is Western, but it's highly influenced by the West because they are Western constructs. And we also see that the TV was a Western construct, the radio is a Western construct, okay, and the internet is a Western construct. So it's clear that most of these technologies were invented by people in the West, and it is inherently Western, and it does have some validity, okay, on the effect that it has on our lives. Questions, comments? So the argument is that the United States is the top producer of popular cultural goods such as fast food, clothing, music, movies, television shows, magazines, and so on. And American culture has become widespread. So we all watch American movies, we consume their food, their clothing, okay? It's prevalent in Africa. Even I do it, okay? A lot of us do it. We cannot escape the Hollywood blockbusters, and Nazreen spoke about Hollywood stars. I think it was last week I was having a lecture. I don't know if it was with your class, and I mispronounced Kanye's name. I said Ye instead, and the whole class told me it's not Ye, it's Ye. So we know so much about these people that it's unbelievable. So pop culture has dehumanized human beings, turning them into novelties, curiosities, and a means to escape the banalities of everyday life. And in many cases, this dehumanization is propagated by the media's apparent desensitizing and guys, sorry, today is not a good morning for me, I don't know why. Sensationalization of violence, sex, and prejudices through the various pop culture products they produce, okay? So we see, even in the textbook, they're gonna tell you a little bit more about porn and the porn industry. I won't go into too much, but we see that it propagates these kinds of ideas, okay, through the mass media. And essentially, they say that it's a Western construct. Nazreen, I'm not sure if you wanted to say something there. I see you had a comment, you wrote me in the chat.
I wanted to ask, like, when you say pop culture or like anything to the effect, can you put like cell phone usage into that as well?
Can you put what? Sorry?
Like a particular brand of phone. Can you put that into pop culture?
Yes, music is pop culture, guys. Music is pop culture.
Not music, a phone, specific brand of phone.
Okay,
not
so
music.
Okay, so yeah, so that would know that it could be actually. So if you're talking more like Apple or Samsung and things like this when it comes to pop culture, the things we buy, the things we consume. Nazreen? Yes, definitely. Definitely. So even though it's more technological, it definitely can come across as pop culture because all of us want to have the latest phone. We all want to have Apple, etc. Okay, Samsung, I don't know. So it can be, yes, it can be. Any other questions, comments? So I just want to let you guys know, just because Nazreen brought this point across, a lot of us in Africa, okay, it's my assumption that people use Samsung. So who has a Samsung in this class, just out of curiosity? Just one person, two people. So, okay, so I can also demystify my myth then, that not everyone in Africa has a Samsung. Okay, so I was just going to let you guys know that, we could globalize on various different levels, and we can push through ideologies through many different levels and technologies, okay? So, okay. So just don't only consider like American culture as well, okay? Look at this kind of thing holistically, okay? You can even consider Chinese imperialism. Okay, I think I'm not sure if I spoke to this class about soft power, but it can occur through various different instances in the world, okay, where it affects our way of thinking and the way we do things. So it's not only an American concept, but because America has globalized, that's why we're focusing on it here. So the export of Hollywood movies and sitcoms to the rest of the planet has proven highly profitable for the US, and we cannot escape Hollywood blockbusters, etc., or our favorite television shows. We're all on Netflix talking about different Netflix shows, etc. Okay, so yes, we see how it's kind of indoctrinated into our everyday life. Questions, comments? Okay, so here it gets a little bit political. It says pop culture can be regarded as a form of capitalist production in Marx's model of society. So we have these people in America who produce these kind of movies, etc. And then it's said that essentially popular culture is a symbolic system that creates a set of values that are universally accepted or at least tolerated, but from the lower classes of people, okay? So this oligopoly, it's where they use or they own the means of production, okay? And the values are communicated for others to assimilate. So we assimilate their ways of thinking, etc., and what they tell us in their movies and what they produce, etc. And did everyone read, what's this, Animal Farm? Did all of you guys read Animal Farm in high school? Or did they stop doing that book in high school? Okay, so yeah, when I was in high school, we did this book called Animal Farm. Okay, it's a very interesting book. So it talks about how the interests of the elite push their messages onto everyone, okay? And people are taught how to behave, what is appropriate, what is considered current or popular or cutting edge. And since being on the forefront of technology, central to the success of many corporations, many people absorb this kind of ideology and do their utmost to stay up to date with the latest hardware and software developments. Okay, so in Animal Farm, they discuss this kind of message as well. I don't know why we were given, Hate List. Okay, I don't know that book, Hate List. But yeah, I think that Animal Farm was very relevant, and it is still very relevant to the life that we're living today. And that's why, guys, it's also essential for you to understand politics as well, because it affects everything. Yes, exactly. That's why I say it's quite relevant, because we just follow along and we don't question and we just believe what they tell us. Okay, so yeah, that was essentially what Animal Farm was about. And we can see that it happens today, because I know that many of us are on social media. Is there anyone who isn't on social media? Be honest. Is there anyone who's not taking selfies? Yeah, so we need to question these kinds of things and our behaviors, guys. And why are we doing the things we do? Why are we just following along? Okay. So we are becoming more individualistic. Tando, excellent, Tando. That's fantastic.
Ma'am, I have something to say.
Oh, I thought you were, okay, I thought you were saying me with regard to what I asked.
No,
Yes?
you said something about why do we just follow. I'll speak in Black culture because I'm Black and I can relate. It's like when we ask, like, why do we slaughter or why do we have to wear ispandla? Ispandla is like that skin you have to wear around your wrist,
Yes.
like goat skin,
Yes,
basically.
I know it, yes.
So we ask those kind of questions and they can only give us, why are you asking? Why are you questioning? We've always done this from back then. So who are you to come and, and it's not a matter of trying to disrespect them. It's just wanting to understand, like, why do we do things the way that we do them? Because if, let's say, like you just asked, like, if we didn't do this, like, would it still matter? But they also don't have answers. So that's why we just follow, like, oh, okay, tradition, I guess.
Oh, okay. So you mean you're speaking about your parents or the older people when you question them?
Older people, yes.
Oh.
They also don't have answers. So
okay, so but then that's a problem with education. And I think I was listening to one of the radio stations the other day where they say that and I'm just saying, like, religious values are instilled and there's a methodology of which they do it in Africa, but they don't do this with cultural knowledge. So there's not a systematic way of teaching you your cultural values. And it's a problem within the African society. I can't remember which radio station it was on. It was probably Kaya or Metro FM. So yes, I think that you need to, this kind of thing, you need to say, okay, why are they not teaching us? Okay, do they know why they're doing it, etc.? So, yeah. You want to say something, Tando?
No, ma'am, that's all I just have to say.
Yeah, so it's just it's a matter of education, yeah, when it comes to that, okay, with your culture. So it is a problem in the South African context, as I was listening on the radio. Okay, so yes, we are becoming more individualistic, okay? And the more consumer-driven a nation is, the more individualistic it is likely to be. I don't know how true that is, though, because even though a lot of Asian nations are very consumer-driven, I don't see them as being more individualistic. They do essentially care about each other as compared to European nations. But that is just my subjective view, okay? And it's not proven. So just giving my view there. Questions, comments? Does anybody disagree? The more consumer-driven a nation is, the more individualistic it is likely to be. Who thinks South Africa is very consumer-driven? Where we constantly want to buy things? No? Yes, and Paul?
Yes, ma'am, we are consumer driven because let's say our parents, when they see specials, they just want to buy, even if they don't need it, just because it's on specials, they just want to buy.
Okay, good. So, okay, so yes, this is part of capitalism, actually. If you didn't know, That's what it makes us do. Yes, Nazreen?
So, like she said, that people, when it happens to be a sale, you want to go and buy that, even if you don't have that spare amount of money, you still want to go buy it because it says special. And when you think about it, if you compare prices to when stuff are not on special and versus when it's on special, there isn't that much big of a difference. If you go to places like Macro, for instance, where they have bulk special, it's not really a special.
Okay, good point that she's bringing across. So, yes, this is all economics, capitalism, etc. Amakalani says, I think that SA is very consumer driven. We always want the latest technology and the best products that money can buy, even if we don't have the money. Yes. And then we get involved in credit because we want to live up to these images. Okay. So yes, it does have an effect on us as people. Okay, so modernity has profoundly impacted many members of the indigenous population of South Africa. Colonization and imperialism went hand in hand, and apartheid itself was an imperialistic endeavor propagated by a minority group. Okay, so let's talk more about the second point. I think it's very interesting, and you guys are going to give me your viewpoints. So in an article published by TV Yabantu, the writer, a Black South African, claims that cultural imperialism has caused Africans to view themselves and their culture as inferior, and that anything from foreign countries, particularly ones like the United States, is better than indigenous African culture. So who wants to say something about that? Who thinks it's true? Okay, so it's quite sad actually. So who doesn't think it's true? Guys, who doesn't think it's true? Come on. Am I talking to like only 10 people in this class? Okay, so let's get someone who doesn't think it's true. Okay, Nakamo Kholeng, I hope I said your name right. If not, you can correct me. Why do you think it's not true?
Well, personally, I sort of think like, for instance, with the media, let's say the music culture to be exact, they mostly would feel like they always look down on us, not to say dumb, but like they look into getting new stuff, interesting.
Who's us? Yeah.
The African continent, African culture in terms of the music scene. I'm just putting an example of the music scene with what I've experienced, for example.
Yeah.
Whereby they're always looking for something interesting, something new, something unique. They don't want to get, let's say, an African artist who does American music. To them, it's just another artist who similar to those from America. So whenever there's someone who's coming from Africa and bring their music, they're always saying something new, something fresh, something African, tribal, and stuff like that. So with that example being put on, I feel like in some instances, I do not agree with them saying that the African culture is much better than, the American culture is much better than Africa, where there are some unique, different things and themes and culture that they always wanted to know. As even some African American people would think that they originated from Africa, so they would like to know more about where they come from and all of that stuff. So that's just my viewpoint.
So the point is saying that Africans view themselves and their culture as inferior. You don't feel that way. You don't feel that as Africans, you buy so much into African American culture or American culture more than your own African culture.
On my point of view, I feel like most Africans do that, but personally, subjectively, I don't think so.
Okay. So yes, okay. So we need to look at it holistically, but subjectively, as we are giving our own opinions, that's how you feel. Okay, cool. Yes, Nazreen?
So when they say as African people view themselves as culturally as inferior, can that also be subjected to American people cultural appropriation of African? Because I don't think that African people should view themselves as inferior when Americans are using their culture.
So I don't really know if this cultural appropriation, if like, yeah, it's very debatable, which we will get into this topic. I don't know if African people view themselves and their culture as inferior, because I'm not African and I can't really say, okay? But this point that's come across from Yabantu TV, from an article, it says that you know, African people do, and we're getting some interesting viewpoints here. So Amukelani says, I agree, a lot of South Africans will place the American culture on a pedestal simply because it is idolized by most people. Okay, so guys, it's something to think about. I know that when I encounter, like I said, about in the music industry, South African rappers, they're all speaking with this American twang. Okay, it's something that I've encountered, and I don't know if it goes across all South African African people. Okay, so yeah, any other points on that or comments? So the writer claims that Black people have given away their power, insinuating that this is conscious or unconscious acceptance of cultural imperialism, and has essentially served to undermine the mindsets of Black South Africans. The writer also claims that cultural media products of countries like Britain and the United States have brainwashed Black South Africans and have made them believe that Africa is poor, backward, and in a constant need of assistance from foreign principalities. While it is true that Africa has suffered and continues to suffer from many troubles such as inequality, war, civil unrest, famine, and disease, it is also true that the overarching narrative of the West is that Africa as a whole is largely underdeveloped, riddled with problems, and lacking in any real view. And the Western media itself is imperialistic. Any comments about this? Does anyone disagree? So I said it's quite touchy today, guys. So we're really getting to question our identities here. Who agrees? Tanda says it's the sad truth. It is the sad truth. I feel it's the sad truth. It's subjective, okay? This is interesting. The writer views online media companies like Google, Facebook, and Instagram as an extension of cultural imperialism and something that is being used to create a kind of apartheid in virtual spheres across the world. So what does he mean? Policies of Google and YouTube flag many traditional African practices as containing nudity and being sexual in nature. The argument is that the traditional dress of African women is in violation of community standards. However, standards being used as a gauge here as specifically Western American standards, rather than the standards of native Black Americans. In this way, companies like Google force their standards on Black African populations and make them feel ashamed of their cultures and values. Any comments on these points? I agree with them, by the way. Yes, Maki.
Ma'am, I agree with what he's saying to the extent of like, when they're making a search engine, right? Like, I remember I was trying to search up my name and something, and yeah, it got it all wrong. And I was just thinking to myself, like, why are other people's names said right? And then like you're gonna, like, I don't understand. It's almost like it's unintentional, but at the same time it's done on purpose, because I mean it's 2022 now. Like, technology has come a long way. So I feel like those small little like things, they could have fixed it. So I believe what the writer is saying here in terms of it is creating like some virtual segregation.
Yeah, no, the thing is that it's not inclusive. It's definitely not inclusive. And I think last week we spoke about AI and how that, there's a lot of AI that cannot even read abnormalities on dark-skinned people, okay? And it's just because they don't consider dark-skinned people, okay? So even these things of your name or who you are, your identity, etc., we can't find information about it because they don't consider it. So yes, Tando, you would like to say something?
Ma'am, I have a question. I want to understand this thing further. Like, I've been trying to read it and I don't understand. What do they mean? African woman is, the traditional dress of an African woman is in violation of community standards.
So they mean like when you don't cover your body. So your sexual parts are showing.
But okay, with that, like, yes, it's been a thing, but now the Western side of Western America is taking that, because now sex appeal sells. So like Kim Kardashian is known for being like the queen of nudity. Like she just flaunts it. So now it's like when we do it, it's wrong, but when they do it, it's like, oh my gosh, that's sexy, that's cool. Like, that's such double standards. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's why we're addressing these double standards now. So we're talking more about it, and we're saying that that's why these companies are, they're creating this kind of apartheid where African people are subjugated to these kind of policies, but people in the West aren't.
Weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
You understand it better now. So it's what you're saying is completely correct. And that's why it's not a very good thing for African people and African societies, etc. And how they make us feel ashamed of who we are. It's shameful, right? Don't you think? If they say that they're going to flag it because of nudity, etc., but they're not doing that to people in the West, okay, who have bikinis on, etc., it's kind of shameful. Any other questions or comments? I don't know if it's true though, guys. Has anyone been on YouTube and seen this kind of thing happening? I don't know if it's true. I do know that I spoke about more of African languages and how it's difficult to access Google in different languages. Okay, so some says it's true. Marky says it's the first time. Yeah, I'm not sure either. So I haven't seen any content on the internet with traditional African people, etc. So maybe I'll have a look and see. Since countries like the United States have a great deal of influence in terms of industry, economics, politics, and culturally, Black Africans in South Africa and other parts of the world have little or no choice in the matter. Either they must accept Google standards or tolerate them and use the services they provide, or use an alternative service. Okay, so we're going to research that and see if it's actually true. Since South Africa became a democracy, we've seen a rise in fast food chains, McDonald's, Burger King, Domino's Pizza, Cinnabon, etc. Okay. And I actually don't eat American fast food at all. Even Krispy Kreme, I don't eat it. Really, I just don't buy into this Americanism. So it should therefore come as no surprise that the rise in these establishments has led to a direct increase in the levels of obesity across the nation. Because, like, guys, I just feel as though they just put horrible ingredients. It's not like real food. I would rather just buy a South African brand that makes donuts. Because at the end of the day, they manufacture these things so cheaply, they throw it away if it doesn't get sold. So I don't want to put that kind of stuff in my body and, I haven't been to America, but I know that lots of people have. And obesity is huge in the States. Okay, so yeah, I don't think it's kind of healthy. Tando, what's the difference between?
Ma'am said you'd rather buy donuts that are from a South African company than Krispy Kreme.
Yeah.
It's like,
why?
What is the difference?
Because I would rather buy something where I know that they're using South African ingredients and it's not mass produced. Okay, so these small businesses, etc. When they mass produce products like McDonald's and Burger King, etc., I just feel that it's so standardized that they're using the cheapest ingredients. To think about it, that they throw away these donuts at the end of the day. I don't know if it's healthy. I don't know. And also, like, when we buy anything that's like American, we need to think about the capital flows as well. Even being, a lot of people question, we shouldn't support America, etc. But even social media, you're supporting Mark Zuckerberg. So all of these things, yeah. I'm just giving you my viewpoints, guys. It's not what you have to do. It's just my point of view. But we have less than a minute, so can everybody please go into the third link? Here it is. Let's go there now. Does everybody have the third link? Yeah, and this has also directly affected the rate of obesity in South Africa. And also what kind of image in the textbook, it speaks specifically about African women and obesity, okay? So I didn't put the points here, but it does speak about this and how it makes it okay for African women to be obese because of how it's normal in America. So yeah, we need to think about those points as well. Okay. We can therefore conclude that Western ideas and conveniences undermine native cultures in one instance and serve to exacerbate existing cultural traits in other contexts. In both ways, the net effect is technically detrimental. While modernity and Western culture have brought technology, convenience, and opportunities to many indigenous people, it has not been without significant costs. Okay. So, yes, Maki, you'd like to say something?
Ma'am, just on this concluding point, it also reminded me of something, ma'am. I don't know if you've ever played FIFA before, ma'am.
Okay, tell us.
But like, I remember, like, because I have this FIFA 17 and 18, right? And like, in the way it's saying here on this point that how it undermines native cultures and one's instance and serves to exacerbate existing cultural traits. I remember, like, I was playing with one team, right? And when I was looking at like the back players, I'm like, this is not their faces at all. It's like they just put a random like a random face on someone, and it's like this is very far. It's like just put faces on all of them. So like,
yeah,
if you're 70% rating or below, you just like have a random person face, and I'm like, this. I keep trying to ignore it, but I'm like, this is not right.
so I mean, how does it relate to you as an African person? So how is it not right? What do you feel? How do you think it should change?
In terms of, because ma'am, what I don't understand is they're all going to the same chamber, right? Where
Yeah.
the graphic draws up the players, right? So they all step into the same chamber. So it's like, to me, how is the chamber getting everyone right? Even, I don't know if you know Pogba, the Man United player. He's also like drawn like some random person, like who, it's like, it's not even their face. So I don't understand if like they undermine this on purpose, because FIFA, each game they tell us how the graphics have improved, but it's like that one problem hasn't improved.
So do you feel like it's specifically towards African players? Is that what you're saying? Or is it all the players in general?
No. I think it's specifically to the African players, because that's the only players who have a problem with this.
Yeah, well, it could be, so maybe they don't take many things into consideration. And that's why we always have to be aware of the technology we use, the games we play, etc. Okay, so we don't know the creators if they, we've seen it in the South African context as well, where, they don't take the native population into consideration. I think it was Clicks had an advert, I think it was a while back, that was quite controversial. Okay, so yeah, so we need to remember that there are people behind the creation of these adverts, these products, etc. And we don't know if their teams are diverse. Okay, so if they have African people on their teams building these products, etc. There was also some controversy, if you guys didn't know, with Cotton On, because Cotton On's messages or their advertising only had white kids in their social media. So there were a lot of bloggers, etc., saying, why is there no diversity, etc. So it can happen that the people at the top are just, one race and there's no diversity, and it filters through their products and their messages and everything else. I'm not sure. I haven't watched FIFA or played FIFA, so I can't really say. But it's possible, completely possible. Comments, questions? So guys, that's why we always need to be aware of the media we're consuming, okay? And that's why also the skin lightening thing is also a factor. So framing, agenda setting is creating narratives, and this is what the media is all about. The interests of a few are artificially turned into interests of the many, and as such, the world continues on its current course. The media informs, educates, entertains, assists, forewarns, and guides its consumers. And from another, it misinforms, lies, distracts, undermines, sabotages, and leads those who would make use of it astray. The unfortunate thing is that we can't run away from the media. So the truth lies somewhere between these two perspectives, and while the media often likes to see itself as a champion of creativity and human achievement, it is often quite the opposite of this. Who has a positive view of the media? Maybe even before reading this information. So Nazreen, are you getting enlightened now about certain issues and topics? Or do you still have a positive view? Or you want to say something?
I am enlightened by it, but I still think that there is some positivity of media, especially when it comes to businesses, because everything is influenced by media. So I feel like that is one major impact.
So how do you feel it's positive for businesses?
Advertisement.
Okay.
So
yeah, go ahead.
So with advertisement, if you advertise in the correct way, you get more people. Your specific brand, your specific target, everything relies on media now.
Mhm.
Not many people will go to a magazine and see your advertisement because who reads a magazine right now?
Okay, good. Yeah, so I studied a lot of digital business, for those of you who didn't know. And yes, of course, the media plays a relevant role in selling products, which it's debatable if it's good or bad because of consumerism. And then also, we also need to remember, Nazreen, that's a good point that you brought across, but we need to remember that these businesses as well are controlled by people, and these people have agendas and ideologies, etc. So yeah, we need to think about it as well. Yes, and Paul?
Yes, I agree with Nazim. It also have a good impact based on the businesses, but I also think that it also have a good impact when it comes to learning other people's culture,
Yes,
trying to respect other people culture. Like for example, Indians, they have their own way, own things to do. Let's say, for example, what I can say, they pray on Fridays, or like Muslim, they pray on Friday. If
yes.
let's say you work around those people, you need to understand and respect that, okay, this is what's happening. But if it was not for social media, you wouldn't understand what's going on. You will take it as these people are crazy or something like that.
Okay, good. So it does increase the awareness of different cultures, which is true. Yes, Nazreen would like to say something again, and then we'll move on. Yes?
So I agree with, sorry, I forgot your name, but I agree with the girl who just spoke that it does give you awareness of different people's cultures, because up till recently, I was very confused about different cultures, like different African cultures and what they wear and how beautiful and colorful it can be.
Yeah.
And when it comes to my religion, I know we pray every day, 5 times a day, and it's a blessing to do that. But when it comes to religion and when it comes to culture online, it's difficult to know who does what because there's so much toxicity in it.
Yes, that's true. Yes, that's true. So there's a lot of toxicity online, guys. So yeah, and it does inform us about different religions, different cultures, etc. So we can take the good out of it, but we also need to understand there are inherent negative effects and negative ideologies. So here we go. Think of an international news channel or your favorite cartoon. What comes to mind? So we know that the international media, Hollywood movies and their news channels, etc., represent a kind of disparity in the world. And it's a reminder to many nations that they are culturally or economically lacking in one or more notable ways. So this means that we are bombarded with international news or international media from the US. And this means that our own countries are economically lacking because we have not reached that level. But we also know that it's not always the case, okay, because Nigeria has Nollywood and India has Bollywood, okay, so this opinion can also be counterweighted. Is there anyone who has a favorite cartoon that isn't American or British? Yes, Guaps. Oh, Guaps had his mic open, but then he closed it. Super
It's on.
Oh, yes, Guaps. Yes, you'd like to say
Yeah,
something.
I'm saying, ma'am, when I was young, ma'am, I used to like this cartoon called, what's it called? Takalani or something. Yeah, man.
Takalani
I think that's
Sesame. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, cool. Takalani Sesame. Good. Yes, Nazreen?
So I'm gonna bring up anime because that's Japanese orientated, which doesn't have much American influence except for when you want to change them to dubbed. but that is basically just Japanese, and it's not either American or Britain.
Okay, good. So Nazreen says she watches anime, which is Japanese, and that's Japanese soft power, if you didn't know. Okay, Umpo, yes? So the Lion King is an American production, right? So I think they brought it into effect. I don't know, is the Lion King South Africa, well, is it African, the story? I'm not sure. Or is it just a totally American production?
The story is based on African, I think, but I don't know if it's an American production or what.
Yeah, so guys, let's do this thing where we write me in the chat so we all don't speak at the same time. Yes, Guaps? Cool cats. Yeah. Yes, Guaps?
Nah, it's cool.
Okay. So yes, Cool Cats. Cool Cats was South African, right? I think. I can't say Zinhle's one. Gundi, no. Mazwi, I think. Cool Cats. I don't know. Is that a cartoon, Zinhle?
Yes, those are cartoons.
Wow, okay, I don't know that one. That's so interesting. I know Cool Cat. I know the ones that are in English, I think. Was that in English as well? Zinhle?
No, it's in Sizulu.
Okay, so that's probably why I don't know it. So yes, we need to be aware of Western ideas, okay, so that we do not just simply absorb information, we need to criticize them first. And we also need to understand, guys, you know, when they provide us with these movies or cartoons, etc., their ideologies are also filtering through, indirectly or directly. Okay, so we should always think about that as well. So, culture has aspects that are more or less permanent, but the truth is that culture changes as time moves on, okay? So there's this kind of mutation that occurs, which we have spoken about a little bit, where we spoke about Africans and African culture, okay? So it does happen, and it's also with Indian people as well, it happens. Okay, there's this mutation. So culture is effectively assimilated, and the extent to which it transforms a person will depend on the individual in question. Cultural imperialism has its limitations, and people do not simply accept all aspects of popular or Western culture without first examining its values on some level. So how many of you question yourselves before you just accept Western culture? Good, Nazreen. So do I. Kolo does as well. Okay. So it's not so, yeah, question a lot. And just remember that you shouldn't only question, you know, Western media, but all kinds of media that you consume, okay? People are always filtering or incorporating their ideologies into it, even anime, everything. Cool. So cultures become hybridized, okay? It mixes and it creates something different. Cultural hybridity is present all over the world, whether it is Russians dressing as punks or Japanese people wearing brightly colored wigs, okay? So we take different things from different cultures. Can anybody think of like a South African example of cultural hybridity? Where we've kind of like mixed the cultures. No? Okay. Yes, Palesa?
Ma'am,
I don't think that it's something that we do intentionally. Like, for instance, right, in South Africa, we have a lot of cultures and like different languages. So you find a Sotho and a Zulu person having a child or getting married and having a child together. Né?
Yeah.
And then as the child grows, they grow on both sides of the family. And then the older they grow, then they just they incorporate. Yeah.
Okay.
They just mix
Okay. So you're giving, okay. So they incorporate like both, they like incorporate both cultures or whatever.
Yes.
Okay. Anything with like where we do this with something that happens overseas abroad, that you can think of? I can't think of anything at the moment, but I do know that we have this type of dress, like in Indian culture, where we call it Indo-Western kind of dressing, and it's like you'd wear jeans with like a sari blouse or things like this. But that's the only example I can think of. I can't think of anything else. So let's talk more about the rejection of false identities. So we know that our identities form a part of who we are. Now, what is a false identity? A false identity is essentially one that is fabricated or is not real, okay? And we find this a lot online where people create these false identities, and it can also be a defense mechanism because we use it to protect ourselves from some kind of harm or to cause harm as well, okay? And it happens a lot in the online world where we create these false or fake identities. It's not who we really are. So we make people believe that they are real, okay? It's a ruse. So is it possible to ever know anyone? So this question is almost impossible to derive, but throughout history, we know that we have always sought to seek our authentic selves. So this hybridity of cultures can have unfortunate consequences, since therefore it is often the perception that to accept one aspect of culture is to accept all aspects of that culture. The trouble with culture is to question what to retain and what to reject. So we find this, if we taking in American culture, what are we accepting? What are we rejecting? So we have to question so many things. And are we still going to retain who we are whilst we accept parts of these cultures? Okay, so it affects our identity. So some parts of culture and identity cannot be changed. So just as you guys know, language and race forms part of culture. But we can change things like what we wear, our traditions, our practices, beliefs, etc. Language can be replaced, like mine has been replaced. So we see that history is just a matter of perspective, but the other two can be changed. Okay, people can also change the way they look, and also their genders as well. And it says that this is because of the internet and globalization, that people are doing this more and more and more. Okay, it's a controversial topic, in fact. And then we also get to the question of cultural appropriation, when Nazreen spoke about that Americans are adopting African cultures, or they want to dress like African people or do their hair like African people, etc. But there's also like some people who say that because everything is termed as cultural appropriation these days, it creates a barrier to understanding different people and understanding different cultures and identities, etc. Anyone's comments on that? What do you guys feel about cultural appropriation? I mean, if I, as an Indian person, had to wear that, that African bracelet, and I would say, I'm not wearing it as a fashion statement, I just understand the culture, what would you think about it? I understand the culture, maybe I want to become like the culture, etc. Like some people even have a problem if like an Indian person is not putting henna. Henna, you get those temporary tattoos and they use henna. So some people say it's cultural appropriation if non-Indian people do it. Yes, Nazreen?
So I was thinking about like the saris and abayas and Punjabis and stuff.
Yeah.
When people say, oh, I really like Indian people, so I'm going to wear this Punjabi. And then they're like, no, I understand the culture of wearing Punjabi or wearing a sari or wearing an abaya. But you don't understand the religious purpose of it, but you want to do it.
Okay, so you feel it is cultural appropriation. You feel it's incorrect for people to do this.
In a way, yes, but also in a way, no. If you feel more comfortable in the clothes, then so do it. But when it comes to saying I understand why you'll wear it, or I know why you'll do it, that's a different story.
Okay, all right, okay. So yeah, I think it's like, guys, it's very controversial, okay, because we could also just look on the surface and say, okay, does this person really understand my culture, but they're wearing it, and maybe they do have a good understanding, but we're just judging them as well. So it is controversial. Okay, so Tando says, in her view, there's nothing wrong. Maki says, I think it is cultural appropriation. Okay, so like I said, it is controversial, it is debatable, and we do have different views on it. Okay, so I don't know, guys. It could also increase, the awareness and the facilitation of dialogue between different people, different races, and for them to understand different cultures. I don't know. I'm just giving an example, but it could be. Yes, Maki.
Ma'am, I think by definition it's cultural appropriation, but because we live in like a hypocritical society where, for example, like, let's say from me as an African person, let's say we're gonna have a problem with a Caucasian person wearing braids and stuff, but then also women in my culture are also wearing weaves. So it's like very hypocritical. It's like it's like it's wrong, right? What's right is right. Sorry, right? By definition, it's cultural appropriation, but because our society has double standards, it's like we fight when we want to.
Okay, so yeah, so we must think about these things, guys. So the quiz, it's quite philosophical as well. What is right in the world? What is wrong in the world? So it's quite questionable as well and philosophical. Okay, good. So Maki, so people agree with Maki. That's cool. So yes, so Maki is of the viewpoint that it is cultural appropriation, but because of society, it's become normalized, and we should agree with it in some aspects. Is that what you're saying, Maki?
I'm saying in terms of like, when you know something, you're not supposed to do it, right? But it's like we will become like a society where we choose when to fight it. So like people, let's say with the hijab thing, right?
Yeah.
People turn a blind eye to it, right? Because I saw right now Vogue doing some photo shoot where Bella Hadid and them are wearing hijabs and stuff like that.
But they are Muslim. But they are Muslim.
Oh, okay. You see, I didn't know that. But let's say, for example, let's say there's like instances where people do wear something and they know it's wrong, but will choose not to fight it. But when it's good for us, like when it suits us, then it's like a double standard thing. So I think by definition, cultural appropriation is cultural appropriation. It's just that it's become difficult to point it out because we've become like, we choose our battles when we want to. It's weird.
Can you blackface if you're already black? I don't think you can blackface if you're already black. I don't think, I don't know, actually. So that's why I say it's debatable, it's controversial. Even if we think about this thing of the hijab, guys, what happens like when white people have to go to Muslim countries and then they have to wear the hijab, right? Is that cultural appropriation?
You have a point there, man.
So that's why I say it's debatable. Yes, Nazreen, come tell us your view.
I don't specifically think if you go to a Muslim country that you have to wear a hijab. They don't stipulate that in any law. I mean, if you go to Dubai,
if you go to Saudi,
Dubai
but if you go to Saudi, you do, right?
I don't think so. If
Okay.
they make you do that, then I'm pretty sure that's wrong, because that's forcing you to wear something that neither is it your culture nor is it your will to wear.
Okay, so you're gonna do some research, or you're gonna check, and you're gonna give us some information about that next week, okay? So that we, because I'm pretty sure that when you go to Saudi Arabia, you have to wear it, okay? But you're gonna tell us next week because you're Muslim and you would know better. Okay, cool. Yeah, so can you blackface if you're already blackface? I don't know, but guys, this thing with blackface is so prominent in Asia. It's very sad, and it just irritates me to such an extent. And please mute you. Okay, I'll mute you, it's fine. Okay, cool. Yeah, okay, so guys, as we said, it is debatable, it is controversial, etc. Okay. So we also spoke about the fact that gender and race fluidity, okay, accusations of cultural appropriation, hybridization, they have intensified the struggle of tradition versus modernity. And as we said, it's all more or less because of globalization. The media tells people what they ought to be, okay? They send so many different messages at the same time. And the result is that it's a cacophony of voices and perspectives, and they're all competing for the limelight, okay? So essentially in today's class, we were talking about how globalization, how the media, okay, it is affecting our identities. And I think also if you guys had a look, we'll speak about this next class just now, on the assignment brief, there's a question about that, about our identities. Any questions, comments? Okay, so guys, we have 10 minutes left of the lecture today. Let's just go through this assignment brief because I think that I didn't do it with you guys last week, Monday. Okay, is there anyone who didn't have a look at it? Didn't have a look at it? Okay, so let's go through it quickly. We have 10 minutes. So the submission date, it's open from the 26th of March to Friday, the 1st of April. Okay. And we're going to be discussing globalization and media in the digital age, as well as contemporary media theory. So we haven't gone through all the topics yet that are in the assessment. So you will be expected to be effective at writing a coherent essay on a given topic surrounding globalization in the media, as well as mass media theories, while being able to reference the works of others and avoid plagiarizing when doing so. So I hope by now everybody knows that we shouldn't plagiarize and how to go about mitigating plagiarism through various ways. Okay, cool. So yeah, so yes. The content on Call Campus will assist you in formulating and producing your written work. So the first question, Africa has contrasting views about the role that has been played by globalization in the loss of identity, especially among the youth. Writes a 650-word research essay discussing the role that has been played by globalization in the loss of identity, citing 2 examples from Africa. So we did speak a lot about this today. Your essay should have a suitable and innovative title that demonstrates creativity. Be sure to use academic referencing. Any questions on the first question? Okay, question number 2. Context is very important in text interpretation. Hermeneutics, as both the science and the art of interpretation, is one theory of mass communication that describes text interpretation. So yeah, I'm not sure if this is supposed to be 300 words, by the way. I'm still finding out about this. I think it's incorrect. So when they tell me what is the correct number of words, I will let you guys know. Okay. Describe hermeneutics, theory of mass communication, and you use an innovative title. Okay, and then we get to imagery. Okay, cool. Nazreen, I'll speak to you just now about that. So interpret the images below based on that theory. Your description should clearly indicate your perceptions about how the role of women have been represented in each image and the contextual factors that influenced your interpretation. So here we need to use the theory to speak about the images, okay? It's very interesting, actually. And then define cyberbullying and describe a cyberbullying incident that you once encountered, okay? So you here, even if you haven't encountered one, you can speak about one that happened to someone else and just make it yourself, okay? And then we get to question 3. Define the following models of communication: the linear model, the interactive model, the transactional model, the constitutive model. What is the main criticism of the linear model? And then the technicalities is, here we see it's for 20 marks. Okay, so assessment is technically flawless, no spelling, grammar, or syntax errors. The format is per the requirements in the brief, and the assessment is plagiarism-free and contains references as per the Harvard referencing style where applicable. Okay, so you can go through the learning outcomes that are here. And then I told the other classes that usually when I do my assessments or assignments, I always have this next to me so that I know that, okay, I did this, I'm getting 2 marks. I did this, I'm getting 2 marks. I didn't do this. So I need to focus on that and incorporate it. So always follow this. It will really help you with scoring high marks. Yes, Nazreen?
So I've done my research, did it very quickly, but it was a past law that women from out of the country and within the country to dress conservative, to dress modest, and to wear the hijab. However, in recent laws, they have changed it, and it is no longer required for you to wear the hijab as a tourist or a native Muslim in the country.
Okay, cool. So we see that it has changed, but Saudi Arabia, if you guys didn't know, it's really, really changing. I just want to give you some information about it. So the other day, whether it's controversial or not, they had one of the biggest raves in Saudi Arabia. So you guys can Google that. It was in Riyadh. So countries are changing, places are changing, and we see that they have changed that rule about wearing the hijab. Okay, so yeah, just some information about that. Okay, are there any questions about the assessment? No questions? If you don't have any questions, you can write no in the chat. And then, yeah, guys, just go through the textbook and read some of the information that's given there about identities. I've left some really controversial things out, but you guys can go there and have a look at it about identities. Yes, I will give you guys the recording. So I do post them. And I just want to see if I can let me just stop sharing quickly here while we're here. So I upload all the videos on YouTube, and instead of me pasting the links all the time, I think that you guys can just for the for the duration of this course, just subscribe. And then when you're done, you can stop subscribing. So let me just share it with you guys here quickly. So you'll see here that I do upload all of them. And then you're just going to get, updates as soon as you see ADL 2, then you can just know that it's for you, group 1, 3, or 4, etc. And then you'll just watch the video. Instead of asking each lecture for the link, just subscribe until the course is over. And then you can watch the videos. Any other questions? So next week, we are on campus and we are going to expand on these concepts and we're going to look at media and media access. Okay, so it's quite relevant in the South African context, actually, especially when we look at technology and technology tools and data, etc. Okay, and then also I put up the Call Campus discussion question. It's quite an interesting one. So you guys can put your viewpoints there, okay? It would be interesting to read and to engage and talk about these things, okay? Any other questions, comments? I think it's just Serena Pillay Kolo. I don't know if I actually have a name. I'll just check it. So, but I will give the link to anyone who emails me. It will be up like by the end of today. Okay, cool. Okay, guys. So I hope the session was enlightening. I think it's a very interesting topic that we're discussing and it's quite relevant to us. Yeah, thanks, Nazreen. And we'll see each other next week, Monday again. So bye, everybody. Have a great week further.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye then.
Bye.